Welcome to your Huron Valley Chamber Today, a new show highlighting the good things happening at local businesses and organizations. This show will highlight both new members and longtime members of the Chamber of Commerce. Today we take time to remember Gordon Muir, who was the founder of this show, and to introduce Jack Shubitowski, well-known member of the Huron Valley business community, who will host the show today. And now, your host, Jack.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Huron Valley Chamber Today. I'm Jack Shubitowski, and I'll be hosting today's show. Unfortunately, our founder of this show passed away, Gordon Muir, this past fall. As you know, Gordon was a huge community supporter, active in a number of organizations within our community. The idea and the passion behind this show was really Gordon's, and he brought the school district together, Chamber of Commerce, and really was passionate about bringing business and community leaders together to talk about important things and to be able to talk about their businesses as well. Gordy was also on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors for a number of years. He was on the executive committee, was active in Milford Memories, brewed in Michigan, and of course, he chaired the golf outing. And he had such an impact on our community that they've actually renamed the golf outing the Gordon J. Muir Memorial Golf Outing. And I think that's very fitting. So Gordy will certainly be missed, and his passion and love of community will be remembered for a long time to come. Switching back to today's show, we have an amazing list of guests today. And they include Dr. Paul Salah, who's the superintendent of Huron Valley Schools. Dr. Cynthia Cooper is a local psychologist here in Milford, and our state senator, Jim Runstead from the 15th district. So welcome to all of you today. Our topic is going to center around how we managed through the pandemic, where we are today and the successes that we've had, and then what we expect in the near future. Before we get started, I also want to thank all the healthcare professionals, the first responders, frontline workers, and of course our teachers and our educators. They've provided outstanding service and support through these difficult times. And the three individuals we have with us today are certainly part of that group. So we thank them for their efforts. So Dr. Salah, I'd like to start with you. And the schools have had to make a lot of changes to continue to educate our students in different ways. And what were some of the ways that you had to adjust these past 14 months and some of the things that really worked well through this process?
Well, thanks, Jack, and thanks for making me go first.
You bet.
So first and foremost, Jack, I just want to thank you for stepping up to host and facilitate the Huron Valley Chamber today. Truly, Gordon, those are huge shoes to fill, and you're a brave man for taking that on. I know we all miss Gordon very much, and I appreciate you sharing those words to begin with. In answer to your question, this global pandemic has tested your schools in ways that we never thought imaginable. I know that as I reflect on the last several months, and I think about how our staff has pivoted and rose to the occasion in so many different modalities, following so many different sets of rules and guidelines, I couldn't be more proud of the grit, the resilience, and the team's ability to adapt. Huron Valley Schools started the school year off providing choice to our families. We recognize that, you know, we serve a large constituency with a variety of opinions regarding what the best way with which to proceed as it related to this pandemic. And we built an entire virtual academy from scratch. Our team spent several months working straight through the summer months and weekends in order to build a really high quality virtual academy that whereas some school districts purchased content from vendors, Huron Valley built a program where our Huron Valley teachers delivered content every single day using the Huron Valley curriculum, and in that way we were able to provide an exemplary learning experience for the 1,800 students that signed up for the virtual academy. And at the same time, we also offered our face-to-face program. And face-to-face was presented with a variety of challenges as a result of the peaks and valleys of the virus and the way with which it's spread. And at one point in November, when we experienced that second surge, it was particularly more challenging, I think, that's probably the most challenging point of the school year. But I'm proud of the fact that Huron Valley Schools is the 20th largest school district in the state of Michigan, and we've been able to provide more face-to-face instruction than the vast majority in that 20. And that's saying a lot, considering we cover 100 square miles, that we have 2 comprehensive high schools, we have an alternative high school, and we have the International Academy West. So, facilitating all aspects of a large comprehensive organization, while it presented a set of challenges, our staff rose to the occasion and really have provided just an exemplary educational experience for students this year.
That's great. And the teachers, they've really had to have grown through this whole process, learning technology, and how has their interaction been with the students, and how has that worked out?
That's a great question, Jack. One of the things I'm often asked is, why doesn't the district mandate a specific mechanism or modality for how we deliver instruction through the pandemic? And I have to say, it's because, frankly, if I sat here in my office and tried to invent the one best way for teachers to deliver instruction, then I would be shortchanging the educational professionals that work in this school district. So what I would say is, our teachers, while this year has been a challenge, they have used every ounce of their creative being to come up with inventful ways to engage students, which can be hard. When you're talking to a screen. And I'll just use an example. I was at Spring Mills Elementary School this morning. I was walking through the building. There were two teachers with face-to-face kids, and there was one teacher who was teaching her kindergarten class virtually, through the virtual academy. And her ability to change her voice inflection and sing songs and engage the kids in that classroom, it was just the professionalism and the integrity of our teachers and the way that they've been able to pull this year off. And the kids are just loving every second of it. And that is ultimately what has made this school year a success. So it's their resilience and creativity that's truly allowed us to be successful.
Yeah, it's great to see that passion that they bring to the education process in such a challenging time. So, wonderful. So Dr. Cooper, let's turn over to you. This past year has certainly had an effect on people's mental health and their well-being. We have parents that or individuals that have had to learn how to work remote, which is a challenge, requires some discipline. We have some parents that have had their children at home and had to be, had to help us teach and assist and learn technology and things of that nature. So how has that gone, and what suggestions do you have on helping people to adjust to all of these changes?
It's really been a challenging 15 or 16 months. I think that our community has really pulled together, and it has been awesome to see how everyone has came together to help one another as best they can. And yes, it's really been a challenge for those parents, particularly, I think, single parents. Mm-hmm. Who are trying to maintain their job if they're working from home, and also setting up educational setting locations in their home for their children. It's certainly been difficult. And as well as, I think, for the school teachers, as Dr. Salah mentioned, not only are the school teachers and the first responders trying to be of assistance to the general population, but they're also going through the very same things that the general population is. And I think that's one of the first times, when I'm sitting in my office or I'm doing telehealth with someone who has significant amounts of anxiety over feeling safe. That's one of the things that's actually happening to me as I sit there also helping the client. And usually that doesn't happen usually in a therapist's office. So it's been challenging.
Good. So the parents, have they, we've all been on Zoom calls where, we're having a business meeting and then somebody will ring the doorbell and the dog's barking or the kids are running past because they want to, it's lunchtime and those types of things. So I know that the business community has been very, very patient with that. And meetings that I'm involved in have gone.
Yeah, there's been some humorous things actually that have gone on. So yes, a parent or somebody's walking behind the student and you never know quite what you're going to see there. But yeah, it has been. I just think one of the huge things is for people to really get clear about what kind of self-care that they need and to not get so overwhelmed or frustrated. I think I'm hoping that when we come out on the other side of this, that our culture and our neighborhoods here really get clear about what kinds of things they want to bring into their lives and what things that I think that they're willing to let go of or perhaps to engage less of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So how can parents help their kids cope with these changes? I mean, children aren't designed to sit in front of a computer all day long. And what things have you seen work well in that process? How can the parents help their children?
Well, I think actually having a regimented schedule can be really, really helpful. Human behavior relies on predictability and consistency. And I think both of those structures have kind of been blown up with the pandemic. And you could see everyone's reaction to not having structure and not having predictability. I think one of the things that makes homeschooling, if we're going to call it that, or in person or however it's being, is to have a consistent location in the house, to be familiar with how the technology works, and we have all struggled with that, quite frankly. It's my understanding that teachers have either delivered packets to students' homes or that parents can come to the school to pick up the educational packets. And I think that flexibility has been huge, huge. So I really commend those individuals that have been involved in those efforts. And also for parents to understand the importance of having playtime and non-work and non-educational things going on during the school day too. I know it's very difficult for younger people to sit at a screen for 5 and 6 hours a day. There needs to be flexibility there.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you for those ideas.
Okay.
So, Senator Runstead, you are extremely visible in the community, and during this pandemic, the communication that you've had with residents and the business community, municipalities, has been fantastic. There have been a number of programs. I mean, the local and the state government has really had to make a lot of changes very quickly. And what are some of those programs that you've been involved with that have been successful to help our residents and our business community?
Thank you, Jack, for having me on the show. And just want to quickly mention how much I'm going to miss Gordon. Every time I was at any function, he'd make his way over with that giant smile and put his arms around me and say, "Senator Runstead, I just love what you're doing. Anything I can do to help." And that's the way he was with everybody. Anyone who knew him knew he was service oriented. He wanted to do whatever he could do for the community. The first person I found out about Gordon's passing was my daughter, who, as you said, was an intern and worked for him, and she loved him, and she was so upset when he passed away. But in terms of what we've been trying to accomplish in the legislature is mitigating as much of the negative aspects of this downturn for many of our businesses. They've been absolutely devastated. There are restaurants and other small businesses. Unfortunately, I'm sure you all are aware, many of them have went out of business. They just couldn't make it. And so we're trying to do a lot in terms of federal funding that has come through, passing through state funding to really make a difference for these businesses. I was kind of pleased our last appropriations hearing, all the budget passed bipartisan. I think it was mostly yes votes on both sides. So I think we're getting to a point where we're coming to a lot more agreement. We did pass $5 billion in COVID relief. That included personal protection equipment, pay raise for frontline workers, extra pay for teachers, funding students to get back into classrooms, small business grants. So that was a big block of money that we've already passed. And then just this last April, we passed $1.4 billion to fund child care grants to lower tuition costs, $726 million in federal support for supplemental food assistance programs. All of the food banks that I have dealt with during this pandemic have all been completely overrun. I'm trying to get federal funding for the Meals on Wheels program that serves our part of Oakland County and also part of Livingston. They've had to move constantly to get a food kitchen. So I'm trying to get funding to fund the food kitchen so that they can have a permanent place to cook the food and get out to the community. We passed the $374 million in federal COVID testing funding, $20 million for testing for schools, $20 million for testing in corrections facilities, $379 million for rural assistance, $35 million for substance abuse protection and treatment. I was really pleased that the governor signed my bill to create a suicide prevention commission. We've been working with that commission to prevent suicides. Michigan has a much higher rate than the national rate, and the national rate's been exploding. So we really have to do something about that. $32 million to address mental health issues during the pandemic, $4 million to provide home delivered meals to seniors. Again, we need that kitchen. I'm going to keep fighting for that here locally. $46 million in FEMA approved disaster assistance, $260 million for the hospitals, $940 million to restore school funding. The schools have really had to step up and purchase a lot of additional equipment and have needed additional funding. So that's some of the things that we are doing for the community. I'm also going to be hearing in my committee, which is finance, some tax breaks for businesses who have, through no fault of their own, fallen behind on their property taxes. So there's a refundable tax credit that we're working for these businesses. I also just passed the $500 per child tax credit. Many of these families are paying for additional care for their children, daycare that is just way more than they had to before. So we're doing everything that we can do to help these families, to help these businesses. The governor and the legislature seem to be working better, at least so far, together as a team. So I'm really optimistic going forward that we're going to continue making a difference for the people in the state of Michigan.
That's great. And it's nice to hear that we're working together, that all sides are working together to get good things accomplished. I know the stimulus early on, it was so critical because it gave people hope that, hey, I might be laid off, but at least I know that, I've got there's some resources. And what are some of those programs that, how do people access those programs?
Well, the critical, I would say the critical program that we still have a glitch in is the unemployment system. Most people are still receiving unemployment checks, and there's a lot of businesses that are not open, or there's some people that they have underlying health conditions. Maybe they haven't got the vaccination, and they just feel fearful of going back to their work. So we at points have dealt with thousands in my office alone of people who are not able to get their unemployment benefits. I'm going to be putting in a bill to put in more workers in the unemployment office so that we could process these through. A huge problem was at the beginning when the checks were issued, they were unfortunately issued to people who were fraudsters. I've talked to a number of people in our community who never filed for unemployment. Maybe they're a business person or they're just an employee and they never stopped working, and found out somebody was fraudulently using their Social Security number. We're estimating maybe 200,000 people in Michigan had this happen. They have had their incomes garnished. They have been turned over to the IRS. I'm demanding in this budget that we put in money to make these people whole. It was not their fault. It was a glitch in the way things were done at the state. So if you know people out there, people listening to this program, if you're having problems with unemployment, if you have been a victim of fraud, please call our office. We take these things seriously. My staff works every minute of the day trying to process all of these issues that come in, but everybody is going to get responded to. Everybody is going to be helped. It's just how fast can we do it?
Yeah. Oh, very good. Thank you for looking out for our residents. You mentioned the Meals on Wheels and the kitchen. That was another one of Gordon's passions, was Meals on Wheels. It was. What an important function, especially in this last period.
If I could get that done for Gordon, I will leave off as a happy man.
That sounds great. So if we can, I want to go back to Dr. Salah, and whenever there's a major change, we all stop and think about how things are going. And I'm curious to know, Paul, what you think will take place as a result of the changes that we've encountered in the last year. I mean, where do we see things in the next 3, 6, or 12 months as we're getting vaccinations out there, we're trying to reopen the economy, and what do you see at the schools?
Well, that's a great question, Jack. I mean, from a teaching and learning perspective, one thing we've learned throughout this entire crisis is we've learned how to innovate, be creative, and utilize technology that frankly, we will never be the same as an education community. Not only in the Huron Valley schools, but I would say in public education in general, the innovation and the utilization of technology to deliver content will move us light years ahead of probably where we would have been had we not have had a global pandemic. In Huron Valley in particular, I think one thing I want to lift is the fact that our taxpayers supported the Huron Valley schools community, recognizing that an investment in our schools has a direct impact on not only our students and their education, but our property values, as well as thriving business community. And that is playing out exactly as the voters intended it to when they supported our bond. And what it's also allowing us to do is it's going to allow us to be able to become a one-to-one school district as it relates to technology moving into the future. So we are making major strides towards providing Chromebooks for every 6th through 12th grader, recognizing that so much of the content and lessons can be made available through Google Classroom or other learning management systems where students can always be connected and engaged with their teachers and their peers, and can continue to engage in their learning without necessarily being in the brick and mortar building. So a lot has changed. We've learned a lot, and I just am excited about the future. I think while this last 14 months has been a challenge, the resilience not only of the schools but of the community is going to move us into a very successful future. I guess one last thought I want to share is one thing I really love about the Huron Valley communities, from Commerce to White Lake to Highland to Milford to the Village. there is such a spirit of grit and resilience, within these communities that it's really special to see. And what I mean by that is you don't hear and I don't know if this is the right word to say, but you don't hear the entitlement. I mean, people just rise to the occasion, and they do what's necessary to overcome and to be successful. And so I've seen that in our communities, and I've seen it in our schools. Has it been easy? No, but we've risen to the occasion, and we're going to be better for it. And I just think the future is very bright. So thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, no, that's great. So Dr. Cooper, what, I mean, things feel a little bit better when I interact with people, and we actually get to interact with people. And our hope is that our next Your Huron Valley Chamber Today show is more in person. But what things can we do to help each other get through this time? And what do you expect to happen over the course of the next 3 to 12 months?
Well, as it relates to the mental health field, I would really hope and love to see people grasp how really important that is in our success to survive natural catastrophes like this appears to have been.
Mm-hmm.
The more flexible we can be, the more we can, as parents and educators and in the mental health field, be able to teach our clients to deal with emotional flexibility, and moderating mood. You could see early in the pandemic that there was so much fear. And in times in our past when things were frightened, we would reach out to other people. But as a result of the pandemic, we were really closed in and isolated. And so as a culture, we've not been in that kind of place before.
Right.
So, it's almost as if reaching out to your neighbor, which is what we would do in any other catastrophe, we were not allowed to do that, or it didn't feel safe. And I'm hoping that what we can all do is find a way to overcome things when they become very, very fearful. I realize that some of this may not be coming across quite as clear as I would like it to, but I think one of the elements from that is just teaching people how to manage their fear can be very, very important, because you have thoughts and you have feelings. You have thoughts about your feelings and feelings about your thoughts. But if you can use wisdom, your past history, your past experience, your involvement, your engagement with the community, with your extended families, etc., I think that helps us power through these very difficult times. I know I have seen that in neighborhoods as I've walked through town, and just things kind of opening up more and more, that I think people are relaxing their fear, they're relaxing that concern, and being able to see each other not as threats, but as a support system as we move through to the next phase of whatever's coming.
That's a really good point. If we can survive the pandemic, there isn't anything that we can't tackle.
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah. So
And this has been a huge thing. I don't think in many, many ways we've been through such a thing on such a global level, which is why it's so encouraging to see, as someone who's lived out here for 30 years, to be able to see across that time span how people really do care and develop friendships and support systems and being able to be there for one another. It's just very encouraging.
Yeah, it certainly is. So good. And I've also seen some strengthening of the families as well, that, we were all locked in the same house. We've learned to appreciate the simple things a little bit better.
Yes.
Yeah. So Senator Runstead, Dr. Salah had hit on the fact that, we live in this amazing community, and really there's been a big resurgence in looking out for our neighbors and buying local, the business community, the residents, they've all come together, the schools, the hospital. It's nice to have a hospital in our backyard. But what have you seen in all of your travels and with the business community, the residents, and how they've been able to get through this?
It's been very gratifying. There, there are so many of these businesses that were struggling, and everybody that I talked to early on and even now, to the best of their ability, and particularly with the restaurants, they want to get out and support them. My wife and I had more takeout than we would normally eat in the week. We wanted to get out and support, and we would get a takeout when we left tips like we went to the finest restaurant in town, and I think everybody was doing that to try to mitigate some of this. I was talking to the owner of Dave and Amy's restaurant, and how his difficulty in trying to hang on, and the community put a GoFundMe page, and I can't remember how much money. It was like an amazing amount of money. People came from everywhere that heard his story. I did a videotape of what he was going through, and it impacted so many people on that GoFundMe that he really felt that just kept him going. So there's so much of that where our community understands that business people are not inherited multimillionaires, and that's not where they come from. These are people just like the average day person who has a belief in trying to make a difference and starting this business. They usually work enormous hours. They're not tremendously wealthy people, and they really need our support. And I've been seeing that, so I've been very, very gratified.
Great. And the way business owners care for their employees, I mean, they'll go without a paycheck to make sure that their employees, are taken care of. And
Constantly.
yeah, so that's great. So, so I have one quick question for all of you. We'll go through this, but we're making great progress getting through this pandemic. So my question is, what is it that you're looking forward to once we get all of this chaos behind us and we can get back to more normalcy? So Dr. Salah, we'll start with you.
So professionally speaking, what I look the most forward to is I truly love my work. I love the business of teaching and learning. And this, over the last 14 months, I've had to develop an expertise in epidemiology, data analysis, interpreting guidelines that have been articulated. And I can't wait to get back to talking about curriculum design and implementation, and really focusing on our true mission, which is, it's inspiring and building futures one student at a time. And we accomplish that with each child by looking at, the content we're teaching, the data analysis that we glean, and how we're going to enrich and intervene on behalf of students that might be struggling. And so that's our core mission. That's what I spent a lot of years in school studying. And this is just a great place to do that work. And it's ready for that level of high quality. So I'm looking forward to those days. I don't ever want to talk about whether or not we have to quarantine a classroom, a building, or a program again. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's great. So, Dr. Cooper?
I am really looking forward to the rubber band that we've all been stretched like, to continue to go back to its more original shape. I think that's the one thing that the pandemic and coping and home being bound and all of that, I think we all feel really, really stretched, and it's sometimes overly stretched. So, on a kind of a global note, I'm looking for everybody to kind of get back to what things have been prior to. And on a personal note, I'm really looking forward to being able to have more in-person therapy sessions rather than using technology to have therapy sessions. It's what I do. I love what I do. I love the community that I do it in. I feel that when people come in for assistance, that it's a great honor for me to hear their stories and to witness what's going on in their life and be part of that change process. So that's what I'm looking to on both a personal and a professional level.
That's great. Very good. So Senator Runstead?
Well, I would say professionally, it's getting back to talking to audiences. I have to depend upon the media, and they may have other priorities. So people say, why didn't you do this? Why aren't you doing that? And I say, well, I do, but I can't, get the media to publish that. When I do an in-group meeting, I take Q&A. I do these large groups. I don't filter questions. Anyone can ask anything. Though I love that kind of environment. I can't wait to get back to being able to do that. On the personal level, my wife and I love concerts, and we can't wait for them to open up.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that that's very soon. So, well, I want to thank all of you for participating today. It's certainly been a pleasure to visit with you and to get the insight from all of you on what's been happening, and seems very, very optimistic about where things are going. And this community is a great place. It works very well together, and it's thanks to all of you and for your contribution. So thank you again, and that concludes our show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure to see you all.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed your Huron Valley Chamber today. This is a production of HVS TV at Huron Valley Schools. This was made possible in partnership with the Huron Valley Chamber of Commerce and WOCA, the Western Oakland County Cable Communications Authority. Tune in for new episodes soon, and remember to support your local businesses.